They say the waters of the Great Lakes hold more than shipwrecks and storms. Some believe the shadows on those lonely shores whisper secrets from the other side. Tonight, you'll hear one such story of a woman who thought she was just passing through, until the night revealed something terrifying. Subscribe now and tap the bell icon so you'll never miss our next chilling story. And now the story begins. My name is Claire Thompson, and I'm 32 years old. I grew up in Chicago, but I've always been drawn to the wilderness, to those vast and quiet places where the noise of the city can't follow you. In the late summer of 2018, I decided to take a solo trip north toward the Great Lakes region. At the time, it felt like an escape, a way to clear my mind and reconnect with the world outside of glowing screens and crowded streets. I thought I was searching for peace, but what I found has stayed with me in ways I never expected. The first leg of my trip took me up through Michigan and eventually to Newberry State Park. I had seen pictures of the place before: endless trees, winding trails, and of course, the deep, cold waters of Lake Michigan, not too far away. But nothing could have prepared me for how the air felt there. It was different, heavier somehow, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Every step I took on the pine needles seemed to echo, even when I knew there was no one else on the trail. The park was beautiful during the day. Sunlight streamed down in patches through the tall trees, catching the dust and pollen in the air so that it almost looked like golden smoke drifting between the branches. Birds called from somewhere high above, unseen but always present, and occasionally I'd hear the rush of water where streams cut through the rocks. It was the kind of place that makes you stop just to breathe and take it all in. But the nights were different. The first night I camped near the tree line, a little removed from the official sites. I thought it would be peaceful. Instead, it felt like the forest came alive after the sun went down. The wind picked up, but it didn't sound like just wind. It whispered, weaving through the leaves in a way that almost seemed intentional, like words I wasn't quite able to catch. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just my imagination. But around midnight, I woke to the sound of footsteps circling my tent. Slow, deliberate, crunching on the forest floor. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure whoever, or whatever, was outside could hear it. I didn't dare unzip the tent, didn't even breathe too deeply, and eventually the sound faded away. I told myself it had to be an animal, though the steps had seemed too careful, too human. The second night was worse. I had spent the day hiking closer to the water, and when I set up camp, I was on the edge of a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. The view was breathtaking, the endless stretch of dark blue water meeting the horizon, waves rolling in and breaking against the rocks below. I sat there until the sky turned from pale orange to deep violet, then finally to black. Stars scattered across the heavens in numbers I could never see back in Chicago. For a while, it was perfect. But that night, the dreams started. I don't usually remember my dreams, but these were different. In the dream, I was standing in the same spot on the bluff, only the water wasn't calm. It was violent, waves thrashing and clawing at the shore, as though the lake itself was furious. And out there, just beyond the surf, I saw figures. Dozens of them. Pale, shifting shapes that rose and fell with the waves, reaching, pulling, struggling. I couldn't hear them, but I knew they were screaming. When I jolted awake, my skin was clammy, my throat dry, and my ears ringing as though I had been underwater. The sound of waves was still there, but softer, real this time. I told myself it was only a dream. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the lake had been calling to me somehow. On the third day, I pushed deeper into the park, following a trail that looped back toward the shoreline. That's when I met a ranger, an older man, maybe in his late 60s, with sun-weathered skin and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me. He asked where I was headed, and when I told him I'd been camping near the water, he paused. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Best not to stay too close to the lake at night. Folks say she remembers things. She remembers people." He didn't explain, and when I pressed, he just shook his head and walked on. His words sank into me, heavy and unsettling. That evening, I decided to return to the bluff anyway. Part of me wanted to prove to myself that the dreams were just dreams, that there was nothing waiting for me in the dark. The air grew colder as the sun slipped below the horizon, and the lake looked endless, swallowing the last of the light. I sat there listening to the water crash against the rocks until fatigue pulled me under. This time, the dream felt more real than waking life. I was in the water, though I don't remember how I got there. The cold was like knives against my skin, dragging me down. All around me were faces, pale, twisted, desperate. Their mouths opened and closed, bubbles escaping like lost words. Some reached for me, their hands thin and skeletal, while others simply drifted past, eyes wide and unblinking. And then I saw her, a woman standing in the water as if it barely touched her, though the waves broke violently around her body. Her hair floated around her like black smoke, and her eyes were hollow, endless, like the lake itself. She lifted her hand, beckoning me closer. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. My chest burned as the water forced its way into my lungs. And just before everything went dark, I woke up in my tent, gasping, choking on nothing. The rest of the night, I sat awake, trembling, staring at the flap of the tent, as if it might burst open at any second. And though I never saw her again, I knew she was still out there, somewhere in the depths of that vast, cold water. The Great Lakes hold more shipwrecks than almost anywhere else in the world, and in that moment, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe those who never made it back to shore weren't entirely gone. I cut my trip short after that. I packed up the next morning and drove south, back toward the noise and light of Chicago. Yet even now, years later, when I close my eyes, I can still feel the pull of Lake Michigan. Sometimes, late at night, I wake with the sound of waves crashing in my ears and the image of hollow eyes staring back at me from the darkness. And I wonder, did I dream her? Or did the lake show me something I was never meant to see?